I interview Ben Smith, and he's very knowledgeable in the Amazon space, from Amazon merch, KDP, Amazon video influencer, and just selling on Amazon in general, from FBA, creating your own private label, and just helping Amazon sellers, right? So there's a lot of good information in this video, and we go over pretty much everything and just have a really good conversation. And before we get into the content, make sure you guys give this video a thumbs up. All right, guys, what is going on? We got Ben Smith here. This is crazy because I've been doing Amazon, just print on demand in general. So Amazon merch on demand, merch by Amazon back in the day, let's call that, right? And me and Ben is like, we're creating content, like, we're still creating content, right? But we kind of just going, different things, different avenues, but he's still doing creating content in the space. But we met by that, right? And we reached out to each other. I'm not sure how it went down. We probably went down the DMs, you know how that goes. And we were just talking and literally just shared ideas, and we like helped each other along the way, along the process. And we're still help each other with different ideas we come up with. But it all started with the YouTube merch by Amazon, Amazon merch on demand. Well, we go way back. So that's where, we're here when it was merch by Amazon. And then obviously like just different routes as far as like KDP. But then, as time goes along, you understand that it's just online business at the end of the day. It's just selling on Amazon. That's a whole different, there's so many different ways that you can sell on Amazon. And then now the newest thing that we've been talking about is just, Amazon video influencer, right? And that was something that we're touching on. And then we kind of just share ideas with that too as well now. But as far as Ben is like being in the space, he's like, we always share really good ideas with each other. We don't hold nothing back. I know that, when it comes to me sharing something with him and him sharing something with me, it's like, there's no, you know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, this is what I know. This is what you know, which is really cool. And that's it's a good relationship to have with someone. So what's up, Ben? What's going on?
What's up? Well, the one thing RJ still does not share with me is you don't tell me all your niches, bro. I'm trying to get up in those niches still because I know
Yeah.
you'd be selling in some good places. But yeah, thanks for the intro. Thanks for having me on today. This is, I think, the second time actually I've come onto your YouTube channel. I think the last one was like probably 2 or 3 years ago when we were I was more involved in kind of the merch by Amazon. What is it now? Merch on demand, something like that.
Amazon merch on demand. It's a little tongue twister,
Amazon
by
merch.
the way.
Yeah. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, I can confirm I definitely slid into the DMs because RJ, back in the day when I just got into that merch by Amazon program, like you content, it was your channel, and then I think there were like 2 or 3 other channels that were the big ones to follow. So I was learning a ton from you back then, and I reached out to you at one point asking some questions, and you actually answered, and then we kind of stayed in touch, which was awesome. And so it's been a cool like online friendship. I don't think we've ever actually met in person, but someday soon, hopefully. I think we've tried a couple times, but yeah. Anyway, excited to be here. So yeah, well, I'm happy to talk about anything, man. We're all over the Amazon space right now.
No, and there's something to point out too is like you've met a few people in the space where you're doing more of the kind of talk about that is this was seller candy, right? You started meeting a lot more people, right? And you start like networking with a lot more people. And then you actually linked up, which is really cool. You linked me up with Liz, and she's doing a lot of the Amazon video right now, influencer video. And you linked me up with her, and then we linked up together, and we ended up talking. And then that's really cool because like you plugged me in, you didn't have to do that. So thank you, by the way, for that. And I think that goes to show right there, just being just a good individual and in kind of who you are and and what you do. Like I didn't ask you to do that, you didn't have to do that, and you did it anyways, which is cool. So I think it just over the years is you learning new things, you just see how your growth, right? And which is going to be cool because we're going to have a lot to talk about in this video or in this interview because it just so much that you've learned over the years. Like, what is one thing, like going into it right now, what is one thing that you're enjoying right now at this moment? And obviously, that has impacted your journey along, like, through everything right now.
All right. Could I say 3 different things real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The first one, thanks for the kind words. I appreciate that. And just to, Mike, just to give some context here, my full-time job is working with Seller Candy, and I do kind of the partnerships for those guys. And that really has been kind of a turning point. I can come back to later, but just about like actually starting to meet more people in the space. Because when I first got into the world of Amazon or e-commerce, like honestly, my intention was like, I want to be able to do something for like sell online from my room. And I don't want to talk to anyone else. Like I wanted to just like, make money on the side or on my full-time thing and then hang out with my friends and like family and that kind of thing. And that was my real intention. A lot of Amazon sellers, I feel like that's like how they kind of got into it, was like they wanted to do this passive thing and they were tired of their day job maybe or whatever. So, but then recently, like it's been cool. Even when I started my YouTube channel, years ago, but that's how I met you. And then
Mhm.
beyond that, like even in the last couple of years, like I actually started kind of going to some conferences and this and that. It's been really fun because meeting a ton of people, and honestly, it pays like in the long run just to like keep other people in mind and do good things with people. You know what I mean? Like you put me in
Yeah.
touch with a lot of great people, and I've led to some cool different strategies, tools, tactics, whatever, and vice versa. So thanks for that. And that's kind of, the broad context. What I'm excited about though, yeah, I think two things really is one. So, I mean, KDP is kind of my, I did the merch by Amazon thing for a long time and was like making videos all the time about that. And I'm tier, I think 8,000 still. I
Mhm.
have not maxed out my slots. So,
Yeah.
in like 2 years. So actually, I'm currently working on new designs finally, but
Yeah.
I kind of stopped doing as much in that space to really focus more on KDP. And
Mhm.
I probably did what, I think you did too, which is start with low content notebooks and journals at that time. It's probably like 2.5, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So, and I put a bunch up, they did okay, not as good as, probably what you're doing. But I
Mhm.
really kind of, that got me to the next thing, which was actually doing the true, like getting a book, like a fully made book published on Amazon. And
Yeah.
that's something I've been doing now for about 2 years, just as kind of like a side hustle that I've been enjoying quite a bit. And I'm excited to kind of continue doing that. And also, I mean, of course, there's like a lot of changes with AI and kind of that space in general. So I think that's number one. I mean, I think
Mhm.
the other thing is, the influencer thing that you just mentioned, has been very intriguing to me. I've
Mhm.
been, a big proponent of using things like Amazon posts. And I've tried, done various things in like the Amazon associate space. And
Mhm.
so I've kind of been like always on the edge of that world. But I think like when Amazon announced the whole Amazon Inspire thing, their
Mhm.
TikTok style like feed, and then
Mhm.
also the Amazon influencers space, I think those are going to become increasingly larger pieces of kind of this Amazon world. And so that's one thing, you and I have recently chatted a decent amount about, and I've now got approved for like an Amazon influencer account, which is kind of crazy, really just to test it out. But yeah, I think those things. And then, the day in, day out of my main job is with Seller Candy. We're helping brands with just, again, selling on Amazon. So Seller
Mhm.
Central, whether they're private label, online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, and dealing with all the annoying stuff, right?
Mhm.
That's, I would say, kind of the unsexy side of Amazon, but it's still something that like I am passionate about because I know how challenging it is. And so
Mhm.
online is fun overall, but not when you have inactive listings or have to get on the phone with seller support for 3 hours. So those are all, things that I do not want to deal with. So anyway,
Yeah. That's actually some that's let's see, I'm gonna touch on a little bit of everything right there because I just got a few different
I
ideas
gave
that
you a
came to
long
mind.
answer.
No, no, it's
You
good.
asked me one thing, but I gave you like four
No,
things.
this is
So
like you'll break each thing down like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I'm pretty sure we can probably go on longer than that, but it's just some good stuff. So like adding to that, I'm seeing that, with this influencer space, like the like we'll get back to the KDP, but the influencer space, I was thinking about this the other day when I was taking a shower. All right. I was like thinking about like
yeah, best time.
what like I have sometimes come with the best ideas over there, but it's almost like this influencer space because TikTok is starting to do it too, right? And TikTok was like one of they talked about it a
Right.
little bit, and then they're starting to do it more because you can actually purchase products now on TikTok and become an influencer over there, which is crazy.
And didn't they ban the Amazon external links, or did I make that up?
I'm not sure
Or I
on
know
that.
I saw an article. Anyway, I don't want to mess your flow
Interesting.
up. Continue. Yeah.
No, I
So
just
TikTok.
I feel like it's more of like the influencer space is like someone's actually buying a product, right? And it's more like it's like it's making it more seem like a small mom and pop type of shop. You know what I mean? It's like small business. Like you got an influencer, right? That's like this really hyped about this product. It kind of
Sure.
gives it the influence of that individual, that buyer to make that purchase, which is crazy if
Right.
you really think about it. It's like
Well, yeah,
it's
and we know at the end of the day, like people buy from people, right? And like,
Mhm.
if you're the best when we're talking about like an Amazon listing, everyone when they're talking about creating like A+ content or something like that,
Yeah.
it's always like you should make sure you have some lifestyle imagery in there, right? Because people want to see like another person that they can consciously or subconsciously relate to that's using the products, and that I think that's kind of the whole draw of like, especially with the rise of like social media and the influencer space, whether it's on Amazon or TikTok or whatever, is you're drawn to these people and, maybe some of them are cringeworthy in some cases, but like you end up following certain people that you like because like you either connect to their story or you just like that. I mean, we've been storytellers for like the entirety of our existence, right? So
Mhm.
I think it's also something about that. And now it's just like now you slap in capitalism on top of that where it's like,
Mhm.
hey, I can tell a story, but the story's also going to sell you this product, like this
Mhm.
toothpaste that I think's on Amazon that's better than anything else. It's
Yeah.
it's a weird world, right? But it is
Yeah.
cool. It's cool because you, especially for someone who is like maybe enjoys either reviewing products or, I mean, we all buy a lot from Amazon these days,
Mhm.
generally speaking, just wants to like make a little short video about it. I think it definitely depends on your personal preference, but I personally think it's a cool space. I'm not sure how
Yeah.
many videos I will end up doing, but I don't know. What do you think about it?
Yeah, no, adding to what you said, it's sometimes you get some really dope products. I'm just like, dude, I didn't even know this existed. And then you test it out, you're like, dude, it works exactly how it says. Like, it's like, this is a good product, you know? Now, like, as far as like reviewing certain products, like supplements can be a little bit because you got to be careful with what you say with certain wording, right? Because they'll reject
Sure.
a video because you have like if you say like, okay, I stand by this supplement product and it
Right.
does this and does
No
that.
health claims.
Yeah, no, you're not a doctor, so you can't. I'm like, but well, I'm just saying what it says on the damn label, right? And I'm just like, so it gets a little confusing right there. But like, so there's some really cool products out there that I've learned from and I've tested. I'm just like, dude, like I never knew about this product, and now I can see how it can benefit me in my day to day life. Right?
Yeah,
You're
for
learning,
sure.
always learning, and then you're doing this, and then you're doing this, and then you're doing that, and you're like, you're learning so many different ways by testing out so many different things, and I think it's cool.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan
Well,
when it comes to testing stuff. So
yeah, I was gonna say, like, we always talk about that. You came on, our the Seller Candy podcast like a couple weeks ago, and that was we talked about that too. Is like, especially when it comes to Amazon programs, like
mhm,
that's how you got into Merch by Amazon quickly.
yep,
The same thing for me is I heard my boss at the time was he was also had a Merch by Amazon account. He just gotten approved for this probably back in 2016 ish,
yeah,
and so I just went home the same day and was like, I'm gonna just make one, and I got in instantly because it was easy back then. And that's
yeah.
just a thing I've learned ever since is like any opportunity you have to get into a program with Amazon. Maybe this applies to any other places, but just oftentimes just do it. Especially for us being so ingrained in the Amazon space, like even if you don't use your influencer profile or whatever,
Mhm.
it's probably a good idea just to like have it to test it out. Especially if you're kind of in, I don't know, this side where you're interested in experimenting with these different things. Because that's also
Yeah.
how you get kind of a head start. And
Mhm.
you were one of the early people to the Merch by Amazon space, and
Mhm.
I'm sure that helped immensely, and
Yeah.
same with like KDP and all these other things. So
Mhm. No, and then just like kind of just going off into that too. It's like as far as like Amazon video influencers, it's a good opportunity. But then obviously you seen like you were going from Merch by Amazon, now you went to into KDP where it's like you didn't stop Merch by Amazon. Like you can still do it, but just not doing it like, oh yeah, I'm gonna upload a design every single day. More like I'll upload a design like
yeah,
every 2 or 3 months. You know what I mean? And you're probably still
right.
making sales on your account. You know what I mean? And that's
Dude,
the
it's
cool thing about this,
I
right?
mean, yeah, that's my I got into the Amazon from the opposite side, which I think is the more common route. Is a lot of people start as signing up for Seller Central, maybe trying to either do retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, or do a private label product. I think that's even how you got your start.
Yeah.
Well, and before that, I had an eBay business, so you know
Yeah.
that kind of is a very normal path that I see, but. I think the other side and the draw to like Merch by Amazon and KDP is that they're very hands off. And I know I will never say anything is like the passive income kind of thing because there's always an element where you have to put in work. Like even with my KDP or my merch account, like there's still like every once in a while you get a takedown on your a design, and I just go in and check and make sure like it's everything's good because someone's changed a trademark or whatever. And same with KDP, like I still have to run ads and do things to like get promotion out there,
Mhm.
but the amount of work that I have to put in is pretty minimal for me to be able to make semi passive income on the side of like my full time job. And so I think
Mhm.
that's kind of the draw, especially with merch and KDP, is even more than being like an Amazon FBA seller. It's like you have even less to deal with when you're selling on merch and KDP, at least in
Yeah.
my opinion. Merch, if you're actively trying to upload a ton of content or designs every day, of course you're
Mhm.
putting in a lot of work, but
Mhm.
and I did that for the longest time. Now
Yeah.
I don't as much, but I want to start getting a little bit more back into it. Also,
Mhm.
I'm definitely eligible for multiple tier ups, so I'm kind of like
Yeah.
I should at least go max my account out as much as I can and just see what happens.
Yeah. No, because the only thing it's gonna do is create a more opportunity for you to make more sales, which is more money, right?
Yeah,
So
100%.
no, and then so like with the KDP side of things, like like with everything that's like evolving right now, as far as like AI, like what are your
Yeah,
thoughts on like because a lot of people are like, no, I'm not gonna use AI for my business, or I'm not gonna use it at all. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different ways
yeah.
that you can use AI for your business. And it doesn't even have to be KDP, but like, how have you thought of any ways of using AI for your business? And then what are your thoughts on it?
Overall thoughts are, I think a lot of things in the world, they get overhyped and, for a period of time, and then they come back down to kind of reality. And I'm not
Mhm.
saying AI is overhyped necessarily, but I like to try to generally think that nothing ever gets as bad or as good as maybe it seems in your own head, that kind of like mentality. So you
Mhm.
just have a more clear expectation or outlook. So I think my personal view is I think AI is big and I think it will be around like forever. I think within the next year or 2 years, you won't even really say AI. It'll just be kind of, it's like it back in the day, it was like e-commerce was this like really, attractive, like new cutting edge thing. And now it's just like, yeah, I'm just buying something online. You don't say like, oh, I'm shopping on Amazon or like, I mean, I guess you kind of do, but my point is like it just becomes normal. The norm is
Mhm.
like, hey, yeah, if I'm writing a piece of content, I'm probably using AI, but no one's like asking me if I'm using AI to write a blog post. They just assume that it's part of my workflow or what have you. Anyway, my point though is like I'm excited about it. I think at the end of the day, you got to embrace it and
Mhm.
probably at least have an understanding of how it works. It doesn't mean that your job's going to require it necessarily, but I think having an understanding, having like a kind of a good sense of what it can do, what it can't do, and maybe how it could apply to what you do, whether in your job or your side hustles, is important.
Mhm.
So that's kind of like my overarching belief on it. I think in terms of like the Amazon world, of course, there's tons of different use cases, right? Merch, I know you've done a ton of content on that, so I won't talk as much about that, but obviously the design elements,
Mhm.
the writing, helping with the copy, a lot of the other tools that we're seeing in this space and a lot of the partner companies I've talked to, like they're all coming out with their own AI tools to help
Mhm.
you better optimize listings, for example.
Mhm.
And I think that's going to be awesome. I think for KDP specifically, so before ChatGPT kind of became this crazy thing that everyone
Mhm.
was, going after. I was already experimenting with Jasper, which used to
Yep.
be Jarvis. I think we might have talked about it a little bit too. What I would do, so back then, what I was doing for the KDP side is once I found, I'm not a writer, right? So
Mhm.
when I'm looking at the KDP opportunity, I'm looking at it where my expertise is in understanding the Amazon product research side. So I know how Amazon works. I know that I can use a Jungle Scout or a Helium 10 or what have you, or and find these niches on Amazon that I think I can go and compete in, right? Because I know I
Yeah.
can either create a superior product or there's a demand, but not a lot of competition relative to the demand, or I know how I can run, better product PPC campaigns than maybe the average person. And so that's what I'm looking for. I look for
Mhm.
that. Once I find that, I'm then going, and that's where I might use some. Well, in the past, I've used Jasper Jarvis for
Mhm.
some of that AI workflow. So essentially, come up. Now I found a niche. Let's just call it like I don't know, hydroponics, because everyone uses hydroponics in the KDP
Mhm.
space when they're talking about that. So let's say hydroponics. I will write the title, or maybe I'll ask like a Jasper or now a Chat GPT or Bard or whatever tool you want to use. Like, hey, give me 8 titles, and then try to figure out which one's the best. And then same deal. I will then use that and say, I mean, essentially go and write me normally I'll say, go write me a description. Go write me now an outline based on the
Mhm.
description and the title above. And then, and with KDP, the cool thing is too, you can go and look, if you have the look inside feature, you can go look at the top like 5, 10 competitors for that keyword and literally see what their outlines are. And I'm not, again, it's like merch. We never want
Mhm.
to copy that stuff. We want to add value and create our own unique product, but we're not reinventing the wheel either, right? So
Mhm.
certainly there's an element where we go look and see, okay, what are these other people doing? Where can I make improvements, or where do I want to add my own unique kind of take? But generally, like that's a great way to do it, is you have kind of that outline made, and then normally from there, I'm passing it off to a ghostwriting agency that's actually going and actually
Mhm.
writing out the book, editing it, and doing the cover. But of course, you could also potentially get the cover made through Midjourney or something
Mhm.
else. I'm very so the one thing I will say, the caveat I will say is I am wary about doing a full length book like by yourself with like just Chat GPT or something else,
Mhm.
because I think
Mhm.
one, it's a lot of regurgitated info sometimes. Two, I
Mhm.
think Amazon's probably going to catch that or crack down on those. So I think you should definitely not, don't take that like extremely easy path. You've got to do something in there. Maybe it's like you write 90% of the book with Chat GPT, but you're still going in there, you're editing it, you're going through your human touch, and make something that's actually a good book. So anyway, that was
Mhm.
my very long-winded answer, but that's kind of how I feel about it, and also how I feel about it in the KDP space.
Mhm. No, so it's like it does still like see a lot of people are like scared about certain things, and there's people that are for it, and there's people that are against it, and that's normal. That's always going to be there. But I'm just like, well, every time I see something like that, I don't try to think about it like that. I'm just like, okay, what can we do to like obviously maybe increase sales, make more money, or your workflow, like
better your workflow
Yeah.
and like what are the ways that it can be done. And you kind of just broke it down right there. And then also, obviously, it's going to take some human power still. It's not just like, oh, yeah, they're going to take over, they're going to take all of our jobs. The AI is going to take our jobs and we're not going to have no jobs.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's like, okay, but what, like at scale, like how can you use this, on the team at scale
Right.
and create more of it, but do it the correct way? So where it's doing, like
Yeah.
you said, 90% of the lifting and the humans doing the other 10%.
Yeah, and I think the nature of jobs will just change in general. I don't think I mean, I think even with when the internet became a thing, some jobs of course went away, other jobs are
Mhm.
created. But the reality is like you just have to embrace it. And honestly, AI will just be something that is kind of incorporated in a lot more jobs. So you'll just have to become a better maybe like prompt engineer or whatever,
Mhm.
the hot terms is that's going around just in terms of how do I best use this. And there's gonna
Yeah.
be people that are really good at that and people that are not. But anyway.
Yeah. No, man. I think it just, yeah. I don't know. It's definitely interesting how we're moving and how everything's evolving pretty fast with
So
technology.
fast.
And I'm just like, wait
Yeah.
up. Well, that like 6 months ago, that wasn't even a thing. Now it's like it's a thing. So you can
Yeah.
kind of see where it's going. And I don't know. It's
I mean, it's
it,
nuts. Yeah, like even what a year, 2 years ago it was like AI was barely. I feel like barely talked about really. I mean, it was
Mhm.
talked about, but not a ton. And
Mhm.
that's only like 1 to 2 years ago. That's nuts.
Mhm.
Like I mean, 4 years ago that wasn't even it didn't even exist in my vocabulary other
Yeah.
than from like movies. So that's crazy, man.
No, now because you talked a little bit like like the like lower content, and you kind of explain more of like the mid to higher content, right? And then or you can even argue that's higher content with like what you're creating. Do you notice a big like difference in competition as far as like sometimes how long does it take for you to make a book sell like on your book
Yeah.
on Amazon?
So okay, I'll give you a couple things that like are kind of my. Well, so I'm going to give you one thing that I think will open anyone's eyes to why full length books are a great idea, and I'm going to give you then kind of my mini launch strategy, which I've done
Hmm.
now. So for context, I've got about 8 individual books,
Hmm.
and then you one of the strategies that most people do is if you got 2 books, let's say like hydroponics, and then like something related to that, like seeds or something. I don't know, seeds for hydroponics. Those are two
Yeah.
separate books. You then make a third listing that's a combo book, and that's kind of how you can get essentially out of those 2 books a third book without any expense really, other than maybe a new
Mhm.
cover. Okay. Anyway, so the first thing is the reason that I actually really like the whole like KDP world is because if you go do a search on Amazon right now for like let's say you go to Amazon, you go from the drop down and you choose books and you type in that keyword. And let's again use hydroponics. On Amazon in the books category, you might get a return in the left that says like, showing 40 of 50,000 results,
Yeah.
some number like that. And then you go and of course you can create a book for that. But then here's the kicker is and a big part of this is getting a audiobook created after you create the
Mhm.
Kindle paperback hardcover. If you do that same search, so now go over to Audible, they have a separate website, and put
Mhm.
in hydroponics, you might see that there's literally 25 or 50 results in total on all of
Mhm.
Audible. And so if you think about that from the perspective of like an Amazon seller, it's like that's like where else can you get a less competitive space to get into? And it's because so many people, first of all, a lot of people that are authors, like true authors, or they're writing books for Amazon or whatever, either they're not a marketer or they're not like looking at that kind of thing, or they don't understand the Amazon platform or opportunity, or they're just lazy, right?
Yeah.
There is an extra step there, and you do have to pay for a narrator and whatnot. But you're literally getting now that you're capitalizing on that. Imagine if you had like 4 books related to hydroponics. You could literally have 10% of the audiobook listings on Audible for hydroponics,
Mhm.
and I think that getting in now with that kind of side of the equation is interesting, especially because like I really only read books by listening to them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my first thing there. Is that's why I think that there's a big opportunity, I guess, and there's a big argument also for writing a book, not even necessarily for the written version, but just so you can get it to an audiobook version, and maybe that's where you're going to make all your royalties. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Second piece is sorry, I'll pause for a second. You have a
No, you're
question?
good. No, I think it's good. I'm just adding to that. It's just like that's like a whole different like I think most people won't even think about that. And I think it's cool that you even share that because it's just like it's a level, like there's another level to it to where, okay, how can I create less competition for myself? And I think that's what you thought about when you started doing all that. Like, okay, how can I
Yeah.
take it up another notch? It may take a little bit more time, but that's okay because once I get it up, I ain't gonna have no competition.
Right. Well, I mean, and that's that that's the thing. It's like with all these different things that you do and like that I like to do on Amazon, besides the seller central kind of part of the equation of actually building like an FBA, private label product and a brand. I think that these things are all these like assets that we just keep adding. Like even with the Amazon influencer thing where you're creating video content, that's video reviews, like they all stack on top of each other. As long as, knock on wood, you don't get your Amazon account shut down, which of course is a risk and you need to play by their rules. You're literally just stacking over the years, like more and more assets, for yourself. And especially with like merch, you can sell your designs on other platforms. Same with books. I mean, you don't have to just sell them on Amazon. They'll pay you more if you do an exclusive thing, but that's build once, sell twice, or many more times. That's like, that's the idea. So yeah, launch strategy. You want me to tell you my launch thing?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Share it.
Okay, because you asked how do I get my first sale or my first book sale. So what I found that works well is so you get the book, it's done. You want to launch it with all the different formats, obviously. Kindle, paperback, hardcover, and audio will take a little bit longer. But essentially what I do is I go and normally you can do this all in one day, as long as you have all those assets. Like the manuscripts are slightly different formats, for a KDP or a Kindle upload versus paperback hardcover, and the covers are slightly different. Anyway, but if you have all those, you go in, you literally create the Kindle, then the paperback, then the hardcover. And they all can get released normally within 24 hours as long as they, pass the review. But my strategy is essentially, normally 2 or 3 days before that, what I'll do is go use a website like the one that I use is Booksprout, essentially and you create your listing on there, you upload the manuscripts, the cover, and this is to get what's called ARC copy, like an ARC copy. So an advanced reader copy. And essentially what it is you're going to go on there, and Amazon does allow this. This is kosher with Amazon, but you upload that stuff. You're giving your book away to that person in exchange for them giving a review. This is what used to obviously be okay with like, private label products that Amazon does not allow anymore. You can still do that though. So you can go and upload that. So first off, you can get some reviews on your listing, literally the day it goes live, because you can set a time frame on that website. And there's other people out there, but I think Pubby's another one, but Booksprout. So if I upload them, I say you have 1 week to review the book. And then maybe right like 3 days before the end of that week, I'm uploading my book to get it live on Amazon. So people will go and review it. And I already have a couple reviews by once it's actually like live and published on Amazon immediately. So that's part one. The second thing I'm doing is obviously immediately I'm turning on PPC because I want to run PPC campaigns. The Booksprout campaigns continue going. So I'm continuing to get reviews there throughout kind of this process. But then I've got PPC, which kind of gets the first sales and actually starts getting the pickup on there. I also follow for about the first 2 to 3 months a low price strategy. So I'm going to price it lower than what the top page of search results for my main keyword is, maybe like 50 cents or $1. And then after 2 or 3 months, once I've got some BSR, some sales volume, then I'm going to up that price to meet the market. Or if possible, if I have a better rating now or a stronger listing in some way than the market, then I'm going to go to the next level, maybe raise it up a little bit more. The other prong that I'm going to tell you. So the other one that's kind of this is like my favorite piece of this whole equation. Yes. That stuff's honestly nothing super, super special. But the best part is that, with the KDP books is you can then go and use obviously external traffic here. What I do is I go to, there's a bunch of websites that essentially they send out newsletters to big audiences of people who are, voracious readers and say, hey, here's a free book you can get, and so essentially you do what's on KDP, you can do a free book giveaway. So essentially you can, for 5 days, I think, and you can only do it once in like a 90-day period, but you can allow your Kindle book to be listed for free. And so essentially you set that up and then time it with, you pay for one of these websites to do a promotion to their email list for your book. So you, first off, because you're running ads, the Kindle version, it's free. You're going to get people that obviously are just converting immediately. So that's all showing as sales in Amazon's system and pushing you up in the search result. And then you hit them on top of that with getting this huge influx of external traffic, which we still see Amazon gives a little bit of a preferential treatment to, but also you're capitalizing on that. And so almost all of my book launches, we've been in the Kindle free category. I've been on either, page 2 between 51 and 100 out of the top 100, or I've had maybe 2 or 3 of them that have been in the top 50 Kindle free books for their time that they're free. Of course, once they're not free, then they obviously move out of that. But that's how I've triggered all of them to get pretty much like a best new seller badge or whatever, and there's various badges. That's kind of my general strategy, man.
So that's crazy because it's a good feeling, huh? And like when you, even though it's like
Oh
you
yeah,
get
I
that badge, you
screenshot
get
all
that
of them.
badge, uh-huh.
Fires me up.
And then it gets, but then you start getting that, even just the idea of it ranking in the algorithm, and then like you do like a search, like you incognito mode, you search for it, and then you're like page one. You know what I mean? You're like, dude, I'm on
Yeah,
page
it's
one,
pretty cool.
but I'm getting closer to number one spot. And that's really cool, and
Yeah,
I think
man.
it's amazing, dude. It just, I still get that like when I make my first sale on a product, I'm just like, yep, I knew it was gonna happen, and I was like, it's a good feeling
Yeah,
because it just reassures yourself and just helps you, just I don't know, feels you throughout the whole journey, right? So
yeah, for sure.
yeah,
And
man. I think it's what that's a whole, there's like so many different ways that you can do KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. There's so many different ways. And I think it just, you like you that when you first shared that information with me, I was like, what the heck? What do you do? Oh, okay. I see what you're doing. And then you shared like a different link. You're like, look at, check it. I'm like, doing like the audiobooks and stuff like that. I was like, dude, that's
yeah,
legit. I was like, I bet you there's no competition over here. You know what I mean? It's like open market. So I
it
don't know.
is. I'm just anyone who's watching this should literally go choose a keyword that is going to have high search results and look at how many results there are on Amazon in the books category, and then do the same
Mhm,
search on Audible, and you'll be like, "Oh my, what? This is
mhm.
crazy." Anyway, so
No,
that's
I think
nuts.
it's just people that are doing, like low content and they got the idea. It's like, okay, now what else can you do? Let's say you're making 1,000 or 800 or 2,000 or 3,000, whatever it is. But like, what else can you do with those books? Or maybe even just go into a different journey where you're like, okay, cool. I'm going to create less competition for myself. It's going to take a little bit more work, but I can see myself making $0 to $1,000 a month consistently within 2 months, 3 months. And then next thing you know it, you're like, that was fast. Now, how am I get to 3, to 4, to 5? You know what I mean? Just stepping stones, right, to get there. And everything's doable at the end of the day. I feel like you have to put your
It's all
mind to it.
doable. There's
Mhm.
always competition. There's always more competition, but it doesn't matter. You just have to
Yeah.
go in and learn and
Yep.
execute better than other people. That's it.
No, man. And then okay, so we covered the Amazon video influencer, we covered the KDP, and then what I wanted to get into next was, we're talking about the networking with, Seller Candy and how you're doing this type of
Yeah,
stuff. Cause I know that, they obviously know you as, like they know you as like Ben Smith, and then they're like not
they know me
from
as Ben Smith. That's right.
yeah,
The
yeah, and
most
or
name ever.
or even just from Seller Candy or whatever it is. They just know you as Ben. What's up, Ben? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then that's how they
Yeah,
know
yeah,
you. And then because some people, when you meet somebody, they're just like, all right, cool. Like, I got my foot in the door. This guy seems like a cool guy. I could see us being friends for many, many years. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
how's all that going? Like, how's like what have you learned, and have you applied like any of the stuff to like your personal businesses? Because at the end of the day, it's just everything that you talked about right there. I feel like it's more of like your thing compared to what we're getting into now.
For sure. So yeah, so I'll give you just a little more context. So I've been
Mhm,
with Seller Canyon now about 2 years, and I've known a lot of the guys who started this company because I worked actually previously at an agency they owned and managed brands and did that's really where I cut my teeth in like brand management, Amazon strategy, PPC strategy, and all that kind of stuff. And then came over here just because I saw the business model and really liked what it was because I've been an Amazon seller. I'm talking Seller Central. Like I've sold, I had a private label product that it was a
mhm,
flop. But I sold through my units, but it still was a flop. I've done retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, wholesale. I managed, various brands as well. So I've seen the struggles that kind of happen on that side. But I've also
mhm,
seen the successes and know that it's a place where you really still can win. But
mhm,
essentially, what Seller Candy is, just give the audience quick context. So we provide outcome-driven support for Amazon sellers on kind of Seller Central, Vendor Central. So any
mhm,
problems that you run into, essentially, you can tap into our team, and they're there to help you get those results. So we'll actually go and you literally submit a ticket to us via a portal, and then we just say, "Cool, we've got it," and go and just execute and give you updates every 24 hours. The only thing
mhm,
is we don't do the advertising piece because there's plenty of other people out there that do that or content creation. We're specifically talking like, hey, I need to set up 3 new child variations on this parent variation. Hey, my
mhm,
listing got suppressed. Oh, my account got suspended, or I have
mhm,
some account health issue. So those are the kind of things that we provide support for. So it's a
mhm,
really cool business model. But I'd say the coolest part about it, for me at least, is because I'm not the one who's actually in the back end, like doing uploads of flat files or getting on the call with seller support. I actually get to talk to sellers and then partners and cool people, in the space all day, every day. And so the cool
yeah,
thing for me is like I get paid pretty much to meet people. I mean, I knew you beforehand, but meet people and kind of learn about their products, different strategies that are working, and that
mhm,
kind of thing. And that's something that I would tell you, like, I didn't have before. I think the first taste of it I got was, you know, when I started my YouTube channel,
YouTube, yep.
my personal one. That's when I started, like, people would hit me up to do like sponsorship deals. And I was like blown away that I even get asked for that, you know, or they'd hit me up like asking questions, which I thought was so cool. I'd never like been in a position where I could like answer their questions, but I'd never gone and met people like outside of that context, you know. And this is my first experience, like really kind of like meeting on a large scale sellers, agency owners, aggregators, you know, these various software providers. And once you realize how many of them are out there, there's like this whole other world. You know, if you go to conferences, you'll start seeing these people. There's a lot of familiar faces that run through that kind of track too. So that's been really fun, actually.
Yeah, no, I think that's cool because it's like you talk about that. I've met, you know, throughout the years of doing creating content, I've met people in person where there's like, hey, let's meet up for dinner and let's talk. And they're, you know, the next, you know, they end up being cool. And you're like, dude, these people are, they're actually legit, dude. Like, you know what I mean? And that's the cool thing about it. But I think it's really awesome, like how you're doing it, like in the space, and you just have a lot of knowledge in it too. And I see you as a person that will, you know, reach out to people or if they need help with certain things, or, you know, you'll help them out because that's what you've done with your YouTube channel too, as well, personal YouTube channel. And you're just like, okay, you know, I do this, I do that. But then now you're going, but now you're going into the space of, you know, selling like a bit like online business in general, and it can be anything. And you're bringing that same influence and that same energy and helping other individuals, so which is cool. So props to you.
It helps a lot too, man. I mean, like, just to have, you know, I'm interested in Amazon, and so that makes this whole thing easier for me because like I'm, you know, a lot of like even the conversations I have with some people, it's also it's selfish to a certain extent. I don't want to make it all sound like I'm just this good wholesome person. I do think I'm a good guy, but most of the time. But you know, it's also because like I'm so curious about like, oh, this strategy is working for you. Like, I want to know about that. But then of course, like I'm also like happy to share that stuff with other people because there's so much opportunity on Amazon. It's not like you need to hide anything except for your niches on niches on Merch by Amazon. But other than that, there's nothing you need to hide. You know?
Yeah.
It's like,
I got the point. No, whatever way you want to say niche, whatever you want to say. I got it. You know, I'm not.
Well, I'm still scarred. I'm scarred from actually when I was doing my more YouTube content. I'm still scarred from someone left a comment. I said niche, and someone commented like, "You Americans say niche so wrong" or something like that. So then I was like, it's always been in my head since then. You know, I used to read the comments all the time. So anyway,
no, dude, no, I think it's I know that always comes. That comes with the you know, the territory. You know, you're creating the content. All this guy's sharing my hidden secrets. Let me make fun of him because he said niche, whatever it is. But we're not in the UK. We're in the US. So, but you know, hey, you got it right. You understand it. So, no, man. Anything else? Anything else to add to anything that we went over?
I think that's it. Like, I think, well, I can tell you like I'm seeing there's a lot of opportunities in the space, like, you know, and I know your audience a lot is primarily focused kind of mainly in the print on demand KDP space, and we're not talking just Merch by Amazon, but I know you know, we're also talking Etsy, we're talking Redbubble, all that stuff. I think that's an awesome opportunity. I think if you're watching this, there's a good chance you might also be selling on, you know, Seller Central in some form. I know I was doing that with the Printful integration as well, and I had, you know, physical products I'd ship in. So I think the cool thing about this space is like really there's so many different avenues to explore. Find the ones that work best for you, and then kind of try to double down on those. But to our point earlier, like I think you should always continue kind of exploring and trying to, like, if you hear about this Amazon influencer thing and it sounds like you're remotely curious about it, maybe that's something you should sign up for, right? And so I'd say that's a big thing. And then I mean separately, like, I guess I'm always happy to help or, you know, answer questions, comments, etc. And I don't know. Any other questions you want to ask me, or we should go over that we didn't hit?
I think that was good right there, because I was going to ask you about opportunity and stuff like that. And I was going to add that to the end, but you got it. You knocked it out right there. And where can people find you at? Like if they were looking for you, like where are they going to find you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn's probably the easiest place. It's LinkedIn. Well, I'll give you the link to put somewhere in the show notes, because it's LinkedIn. My username Skip with Ben, because Ben Smith's a very hard name to find these days. Or if you type in Ben Smith Seller Candy. And I'd just say the second one is Seller Candy. You know, that's my main job. And I'm happy to talk to people, you know, selling on Amazon or interested in that. Or if you provide services kind of in the space, like anytime, I'm very interested in this space. And also, I guess I would just say, if you are watching this, you're selling on Amazon, maybe you're running into issues dealing with seller support or like any of the other annoyances that come up, like reach out to us or check our website out, because we have a really cool solution for saving your time, right? And I think a lot of people are doing these kind of side things as side hustles, they don't have a lot of time to begin with. You need to really find ways to make your team and your workflow efficient. And that even goes for business owners too. If you do own your business, you're probably wearing so many hats. You know, I know, RJ, you're wearing a ton of hats. You have a team as well. So there's things that you should and shouldn't be doing. So that's what I tell a lot of sellers that I talk to is, Seller Candy, we're kind of here to get you out of being in the trenches as a business owner because you really shouldn't be anymore. Take that stuff off your plate so that you can kind of focus on the bigger picture. So LinkedIn, Seller Candy website. I don't know. I have my YouTube channel. I'm starting to post on it a little bit more here and there. I'm on Instagram, whatever.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to put all the links, all your information down below in the description. So make sure you guys check out Ben Smith. And hey, thank you very much for coming on. You spilled some really good knowledge right there on accident. I'm just kidding. Now you put some really good content out there for us. Now it was some good stuff. And I feel like it's like, there's so many different possibilities out there and opportunity out there that you can, like invest your time in to make money, and it can be done, but you just got to, at the end of the day, you have to put the work in, and that's all that,
100%.
putting the work in.
If you're watching this, you can do it. You just make sure you do it, like put in 30 minutes aside every day. Go execute.
Yep. And if you want to learn how I sold over $300,000 on Amazon Merch on Demand, watch this video right here.